Hello, and welcome to WooNews TV, where we bring spiritual concepts into the mainstream to make them more relatable for you. Today's topic: how to recognize and understand and use your spiritual esoteric gifts. We all have these gifts. Maybe you are already aware of yours, maybe you're not. So today I'm going to do this solo. As you can see, I don't have a guest. And I'm going to talk to you about some various gifts that people have. I'm going to put it in categories with labels, but just for structure, just to stay on point and stay in a structure. The labels don't mean anything really. You will overlap in some of these. You will recognize some of these aspects I'm going to talk about. Maybe not entirely within each label. Maybe you'll recognize a little bit here, a little bit of you there, a little bit of you there. And you might think, well, then what am I? Well, it doesn't matter. This is just trying to help you understand these gifts that you may have, how to start recognizing them within yourself. And when you do start to realize, oh yeah, that is familiar for me, what to do with it then? Okay. So hopefully this will be fun because I'm really looking forward to it. So let's get started. The first one I want to talk about is an empath. Now, you might hear this word a lot. Typically, what an empath means is you feel other people's emotions, energies, and sometimes even physical pain. You can feel that from other people. You're pretty sensitive, maybe not just emotionally, but you're pretty sensitive if you're an empath. So here are some ways to recognize if you might be an empath. Does your mood change when you're around other people? Have you ever been in a good mood and walked into a room that somebody was standing in and all of a sudden it plummeted? Well, that actually happened to me one time. And boy, was it noticeable. I thought, I was in such a good mood. And I walked into his office and my mood just sank. That's an indication you might be an empath. Do you get overwhelmed sometimes in crowds? Do you feel overwhelmed in crowds? Can you literally feel someone's pain if you know somebody's not well, if they're sick and you're standing next to them? Can you feel what they're feeling? If they're having a pain in their arm, does your arm start to hurt? Are you quick to help people? Do people come to you often with their problems automatically? Have they always done that? Friends, family, have they just come to you with the problem? And are you quick to jump to help when somebody needs it? Is compassion an automatic thing for you? Do you tend to be codependent? Now, codependency isn't limited to empaths, but empaths can be codependent because when you're feeling what somebody else is feeling, you want them to feel better. So you put your needs aside and you try to help them, fix them, take care of their situation so that they feel better. And you make that maybe more of a priority than it should. And you do it often without them even asking. But think about this. If you tend to do that, it's ultimately because you want to feel better, because you're feeling what they're feeling. But we tend to let other people's state of being, well-being, or state of mind or emotions become more of a priority when you are empathic. It's important to recognize where your energy field ends and where other people's begin, because when you have this ability, you tend to let other people's energies infiltrate yours. So that's why you get overwhelmed. That's why your mood changes based on other people's moods. So it's important not to do that. It keeps you more centered and grounded and keeps you in a better state of well-being. And it also helps you help others because you are more of that state. So recognize your own energy field. And one way to do this is sit quietly and breathe and feel the space around you. Call in the light to fill you. I might have said this in the past, but calling in the light to fill you over and over again. You say that over and over again until you feel different. And then when you feel different, sit there a minute and recognize that feeling. Start to get familiar with your own energy bubble and protect that. Keep it solid so that you can recognize when somebody else's energy comes in, so you could just move it right out. It's also important to do a lot of self-care to replenish. Replenishing is really important, especially for empaths, because you get very easily drained from feeling everybody else's stuff. Now we're going to go to Master Manifester. I don't know if you've heard this before. So what I mean by that is the law of attraction says what we think, where we put our attention is what we create. Some people, that's true for everybody. For some people, it comes automatically. It comes effortlessly. And particularly in certain areas of their lives. They might be master manifestors at work, but not at all in their personal life, or or with their health or master manifestors, or with manifesting material things, bringing them in. They're easy with that, but not so much in this other area. So if this is you, you can do it in all areas. It's just a matter of recognizing it where you can't and figuring that out. But let's go back to what a master manifestor is. How to recognize if this is you. So have you recognized and noticed some things in your life that have come to you with ease? Or if a particular area of your life, excuse me, like I said, if your career flows with somewhat of ease. I'm not saying you don't have challenges or stress, but when you want to make a change in your career, the opportunity is just simply there, just sort of appears, for example. Or you're able to move through the process of changing your career with a lot of flow, and you meet the person you need to meet that leads you to that person, that leads you to this other person that boom leads you to the great job. There's a flow and an ease to bringing to you what you want. Have you recognized that in some areas of your life? I have a client who I say he has the Midas touch, and he forgets this sometimes, but he does. And when he is clear, and when he is centered, and when he is in the flow of doing something that he's guided to do that feels right to him, when he's following that inner guidance of, yeah, this is right, I'm going to keep going, and then things just happen really quickly for him. It's almost effortless for him. The success happens almost automatically. I mean, he has to take steps and execute things, but there's not a lot of resistance to it because he's just in that flow. So maybe you're someone who manifests relationship after relationship very easily, whether they're healthy or not. I can't speak to that, but that might be you. Maybe you manifest money very easily. So if this is you, then be very aware of what you're thinking, because it comes to you more quickly than for other people. So the positive and negative of your thoughts you should be aware of, because that's what you're bringing to you. And also, it's an opportunity to use it for everything in your life, and not just the areas that it comes easily for. So if some of this resonates with you, if some of this sounds a little bit familiar, think about a time that you've wanted to make a change, or you've wanted something to happen, and then soon after it happened, soon after what you wanted appeared. Think about that time and go back to that time. Remember how that felt. Was there a feeling about that? Were you very centered when it happened? Was there a knowing that this was right? What state of mind were you in? Was there maybe even a sound came through or something like that? Pay attention to physical signals in your body, maybe where your mind was, how your energy felt. If you felt clear, note some of those things. And now think about an area of your life where you really struggle with, or what you desire, what you're wanting to create doesn't come very easily. A couple things you can do here. Try to recreate what you recall from when it has come easily. That space, that state of mind, that state of being, try to recreate that. And also, I would suggest, if you do have a hard time saying manifesting relationships, or healthy relationships, or money, let's say money, what is that issue beneath that? Do you not feel do you have a program that says money is the root of all evil, or you have a poverty consciousness where you're not supposed to make money if you're doing what you love, or do you have this lack consciousness or lack belief around money all the time? Maybe your parents were always struggling, or even if they had a lot of money, they still never were always worried about it. There's some inner work to be done, either through therapy, spiritual work, all of the above, lots of different modalities for healing our patterns and all those issues around that, so that you can get to that self-worth issue, that root that's blocking you from feeling you deserve that, and that you can also have that. You have this coming to you easily, or maybe it's even 3 areas of your life that are coming easily. So that can apply everywhere. So remember that if you're a master manifestor, that formula can apply everywhere. So find out where you don't do that as easily, and figure out what's going on deep within. Really recognize that, so that you can work on that issue, so it can come more easily in that area too. Now let's talk about an intuitive. We all know what intuition is. Talked about it before. You know it yourself. Gut feeling, the inner voice. Everybody has intuition. I talk about this when I teach people how to use their intuition. Everybody has intuition. For some, it comes more naturally. For others, it's a skill you can hone. So if it comes more naturally for you, then do you have see if you recognize yourself in some of this list? Do you know things before they happen? Do you have a sense of things? Do your dreams come true sometimes? Do you get a feeling about something and then it ends up being right? Do you see images in your mind's eye? Do you hear voices? And I don't mean in a psychiatric way. Do you hear voices? Do you think of something? Do you think of a question? Do you have a question going on in your mind or your life, and then all of a sudden you hear the answer on a song comes on the radio, or you read something on the internet, or a friend says something, and oh, that's the answer. These are some indications that you have a natural intuitive ability. Intuition comes through in 4 ways: psychic feeling, which is clairsentient; psychic knowing, which is claircognizant; clairaudience, which is psychic hearing; and clairvoyance, which is psychic sight. So let's break that down a little bit. If you are clairsentient, if you're the feeling, if your intuition comes through feeling, one or all of them, you might be stronger in one and weaker in some others, but you're not limited to one of these. So that's the feeling. For example, that's probably one of my strongest ones, is the knowing and the feeling. I have the vision sometimes, and I've had the audio sometimes. But the feeling and the knowing are, for me, for example, strongest. So for me, when I'm doing a session with somebody or information's coming through, it comes through as an energy. I can feel, this is kind of abstract, but I can feel the resonance, the energy of that information. And then I have to decipher what that means. So again, gut feeling is something everybody can relate to. That's another aspect of the clairsentient. Claircognizant is just the knowing. You just know. It has a physical feeling for me here, or sometimes in my solar plexus. It's just a calm information comes through, and if it's truth, it's a calm centering. Oh, you just know. That's probably the hardest one to explain. Psychic hearing is obvious, the same as hearing. Sometimes you'll hear words, you hear statements, phrases. I had an experience some years ago. I was looking at a photograph of some relatives, and this had never happened to me before in this way. And I heard these words, and I heard the words, "A tragedy will befall them." And it was I want to explain this because it was a very specific tone. It was a monotone, kind of a lower pitch, something I'd never heard before from a human, much less, intuition. So it was weird. So I just put it out of my mind, and because I certainly don't want that to be true, and I wasn't sure what that was anyway. And 2 days later, something tragic did happen to this family. So that's in a way of how your psychic hearing can come through. It can come through in your mind, but as a voice too. Again, not in a psychiatric way. And this is entertainment only. This is not for medical conditions by any means. Also, there's psychic vision. You might literally see images in your mind's eye when you're meditating, or when you're thinking about something, or someone's asking you a question. You might see the answer in your here. You might be able to see auras or images, outside of yourself. So those are some ways where your intuition can work for you. Practice your intuition anyway. If it doesn't come naturally, but you have some of it, or something you want to work on, you can work on it, because it's like a muscle. The more you use it, the more it works. Recognize how yours comes through if you want. The hearing, the seeing, the feeling, the knowing, or all four, or any combination of that. Start getting familiar with that. When you've had something happen, and you had this knowing or this feeling about it, and it came through the way the result of it was the same. If you had a feeling about something and then it happened that way, go back and recognize how that felt. What physical feeling did you get? What experience were you having when that information was coming through that ended up coming true? So start with that to figure out where you are with the knowing, hearing, feeling, seeing. And then use it more. The more you trust your intuition, the more loudly and clearly it will work for you. The more you use it, the more you'll trust it. So that's the best thing to do with your intuition, is just use it more. And try it with things that aren't all that important, that are not all that important if you're concerned about it. Are you a natural healer? Is that your ability? Again, some of these can overlap, so don't get hung up on the labels. It's typically empaths can be healers. Healer is a very broad term, so I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail. So from the healers that I know, this is some of the things they've shared with me about them. Are your hands often warm? Can you feel energy moving through your hands or your body? When I'm reading for someone, doing a session with someone, and I keep picking up their hands, they typically are a healer. Whether they're working in the healing arts, maybe not, maybe they're artists, maybe they like to have a hobby with their hands. That's an indication for me as an intuitive that they have some healing abilities. Are you drawn to energy work, to receiving energy healing, or to learning it yourself, like Reiki or tuning forks or the bowls? There's so many healing modalities out there. Are you drawn to that? If you are, that's something you could even look into. Typically, healers have a lot of energy running through them because that's what's doing the healing work. So if that resonates with you, some things you can do is spend some quiet time feeling the energies in your body, running through your hands, if that's the case. Here's something else you can do. You can rub your hands really quickly and kind of slap them around a little bit, wake them up a little. You're waking up the chi, you're waking up the energy, Okay, and then rub your hands together until they feel really warm. If you're a healer, they're going to feel really warm really quickly. And then you can separate them, and like you're creating an energy ball. You might even be able to see it. You can't, I'm not doing this properly, but just demonstrating here. So there's an energy ball there. And if this is you can put it over you to clear yourself. You can put it in your heart if your heart needs a little bit of healing. But play with this with your hands a little bit and see if they get really warm, and see if you can feel the energy in between your hands when you separate them. And again, you might even be able to see it. So if you are a healer, that's something you can play with right there too. And maybe you are actually in the healing arts already. Maybe you are in the medical field or the energy work already. So, you might already know this about you. But if this all sounds familiar, look into some fun ways to play with this, to maybe learn some modalities to work on yourself or your loved ones or other people. Just because we have these gifts, you don't have to share them with the world, but maybe you want to whatever degree. But another way to recognize if you're a healer is know what people are saying when they're around you. And like similar to empath, if people's demeanor changes when they're around you, strangers or people that that's an indication you are a healer in some way. And your energy field might be your aura that's healing for people. Medium. Are you a medium? Are you able to speak to people who have passed on, who are on the other side? After someone has passed away, have you seen them? Some people actually see them. Have you felt the presence around? Can you hear people talking? Sometimes we walk into a room when somebody's died, or an old house or something. You might smell flowers. Sometimes that happens to me. 2 stories I'll tell you about being a medium. So I was visiting a relative some years ago at a new house she had bought. That was an older house that needed a lot of work. And this was in the Midwest. And I went down to her basement. Never loved basements, even though I grew up with basements. And I walked down there and I got to the bottom of the stairs and I said, I don't know what's down here, but I don't like it and I'm leaving. So I walked back up the stairs and left it at that. Okay. Didn't go back to that basement. So a few months later, she called me and she said, do you remember when you said that? I said, yeah, of course I remember that. She said, well, I was home alone. My husband was out of town. And I heard someone running up the stairs and slamming the door. So she had a visitor that had been in that house a long time. So she got rid of it. And that was that. So that's something you might experience too. Also, another story, I was working with a couple, some dear friends of mine, helping them understand these aspects of themselves. And I saw very clearly that the husband was a medium. He didn't know anything about this, didn't know what this was, never heard of this, was really new to all of this. So I told him, I said, you can do this. And okay, whatever. Never happened before. So he was polite, but I don't think he thought much about it. And then about a week later, he called me and he said, what did you do to me? I said, what do you mean? He said, I'm having people talk to me all the time. I said, I didn't do anything. It just activated as we were talking. So what was happening is after that activated in him, it woke up that ability in him, this conversation that we had. And he had people that have passed on come through with messages and just talking to him to share their messages with their loved ones. My father had just passed away and he was even talking to him and he never met my father. So that can happen. A couple of things you want to do. If you feel a presence around you, ask if they're polite, if you're not sure. And if they are, you can ask who they are if you want. You can ask if they have a message for someone or for you, or you don't have to do any of this. And it might come through. You might see them. You might hear them. You might feel them. You might smell. There might be a scent. either a fragrance they used to wear or just a common scent that comes through for you when there's someone around. This can have, it's pretty personal. So all this stuff is personal. It can work a little bit differently for everybody. So none of these things I'm talking about today are one size fits all. These are just examples. So get familiar with that. And also, just because you can communicate with people from the other side doesn't mean you have to. You can ask them to leave. I have a friend who has a strict rule with, what does she say? She says, no dead relatives are allowed in my house. So she doesn't let anybody come in because she'll be inundated all day long, and just, she doesn't want that. So just because you can doesn't mean you have to. So you can set your boundaries and say, not now, not today, not ever, whatever you want to do. So if you're a medium, keep that in mind. It's kind of like that Whoopi Goldberg, those scenes of her and Ghost, when first time it happened, she was shocked. And then now that she knew what happened, she had everybody in the room. And at one point it was too much for her, so she sent them away. Moving on, are you a connector? So this is a little bit more abstract. Here's some signs to know if you're a connector. Are you always connecting friends and colleagues? And are you a networker? Are you a natural networker? Are you comfortable with that? Do you like to, if someone has a need, go call this person? Do people come to you naturally, automatically, when they're trying to pursue a goal, or when they're needing a resource or some information that they know you don't have, but they know where to get it? Do you like to entertain? Are you social? Are you kind of a people gatherer? Do you like to bring people together? These are some indicators that you're a connector. If this resonates with you, keep doing what you're doing, and note how you feel when you're bringing people together, when you're making that connection with, Joe and Susie for this professional idea, or, when you're bringing the person together with that resource that they're asking for. Note how you feel, because likely if you're a connector, you feel really good about it. And your vibration is high, and you're grounded and centered when you're doing that, and you feel really good. So you feel happy, you feel calm, probably. It's just a good feeling thing. So be aware of that when you're doing your connector work, because it'll amplify the frequency of it, the good vibration, the good feelings of it for you, if you are more conscious when you're being a connector. Spiritual gifts, esoteric gifts are not limited to this list I'm going through. I'm just giving you a few to kind of get you started and to work with and see where you fit. And again, they overlap, and don't worry about the labels, because it really doesn't matter. But you'll see that they do kind of overlap. Like I said, if you're not in one of these categories are irrelevant. But you being you could simply be your esoteric gift, your spiritual gift. So what do I mean by that? You being the happiest, healthiest, whole person you can be, doing the inner work to heal your fears, your negative programmings, all the things that get in the way of holding more light of God, source, creator within, of raising our frequency, all those things that get in the way of that, doing that work to move those things out so you can hold more of that higher vibration. You doing that can simply be your job, because as you do that, your frequency lifts, and you lift those around you. Your frequency can be what is healing for everybody. Your energy field, your aura can be what's healing and impactful for the people around you. You might not know that. You don't have to know that. Your job is to just be the brightest, shiniest you that you can be. So that's kind of easy. Well, yeah, it can be kind of easy. It's that simple sometimes. It can really be that simple. So if that's you, if you feel like, I don't know what my purpose is. Well, if that's your purpose, people, again, it's back to similar to the healer and the empath. Note how people feel around you. Note what they say when they're in your presence. Note if their mood or their demeanor changes when they're around you or after talking to you. That's an indication that your energy field is healing and is calming and is lifting for other people. So I hope you found this somewhat helpful. Again, there's a lot more to cover. Things can be very specific to you. These are some generalities for you to start working with. And if you have any questions or comments, please note them at the bottom of the, if you're watching this on YouTube in particular, or email me. You can email me from my website with questions or comments. And I can even, if you give me some situations, I can give you a little more insight on you specifically. So I'll be happy to do that in the comment section too. So hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you again next time.